I was trying to bang out a workout here real quick. I have to make another video on overcoming temptation. So it's supposed to be a four-part series, but there's a key part that I need to underscore. I don't have a script here. I'm going to try to get through this in a timely manner. I have pulled up about a half a dozen scriptures. Let's see which ones I use. Here's the bottom line up front. Jesus has already overcome the world, but all things are not yet subject to him. Those are two different things. What does this have to do with temptation? Well, I think that the knee-jerk reaction when you're going through something is to pray and ask God to take you out of it. And I think it's much, much better to pray and ask him to show you the way to overcome it. Those aren't the same things. So Jesus has overcome the world already, but the whole world is not subject to him. And another way of putting that is he's already won. The only thing, the war is already decided. The only question is who's coming with him and to what extent. That's really important to understand. Everything we do here is just answering that question for us and for whoever we help. That's it. Who's coming with him and to what extent? So in John 16:33, he said, "Be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world." So when demons attack, or any of the less weird sounding ways of phrasing that, and occurrences where the same sort of thing is happening, anytime you're in a tough spot, you should remember that Jesus has already won. The only question is who's coming with him. Now, in practical terms, how do you do that? Well, I said before that I'm not going to quote myself, I have no idea what I said before, but in essence, the idea was if you pray, and in your prayer, what you're doing is you're trying to focus on, what do I really believe about God? And how have I really lived my life? And am I in line with everything that I think I believe sincerely? Do I really do this at a deep level, at a private level, at a consummate level? And if so, what right does that grant me to lean on the Lord? That's a very different approach than praying and saying, God, take this from me, right? So let's see if we can unfold this further. So first off, some confusion. So Paul says in Ephesians 1, he says that God hath put all things under his feet and gave him, the Son, Christ, to be the head over all things. Okay, but then later he says in Hebrews 2, I'm not saying later chronologically, but in another place he says, Hebrews 2:8, talking about Jesus and about the Father putting him in his place, he says, thou hast put all things in subjection under his feet. So he's saying the Father has put all things in subjection under the Lord's feet. For in that he put all in subjection under him, he left nothing that is not put under him. Okay, that jives with what we've seen so far, right? But he adds, but now we see, not yet, all things put under him. Okay, so which is it, right? And the point to make here is that being appointed as the head of all things is not the same as having all things you're the head of, recognizing that you're their head. When the angels sound their trumpets, not for the first time, but in a later time, they will reveal all things pertaining to the 1,000 years that they oversaw. And when the angel appointed to oversee the time during which the Lord lived blows his trumpet, included in what he reveals will be all the details of the Lord's mortal ministry. And that information will cause every knee to bow, and every tongue to confess, which is not just to say, but also to completely believe that he is the Christ, which at once dispels the myth that just believing, even if you're sincere, believing that God or that Jesus is the Christ will save you. It's not enough. The question is, what does it change about you? Because if you don't get to that point until then what he did, what he sacrificed of himself, it's not going to help you very much beyond granting the resurrection that you already will have received. So anyway, so what's Paul talking about when he says that not yet all things are put under him? Well, now let's go to Jesus again, and we're going to jump to Luke 20. I really like this little passage. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but a little side note. This is funny to me. I mean, it's super serious, but I find it humorous when the Lord plays with people like my cat does mice, and it's funny to me. And I think that's relevant to this story because you need to understand what's really going on here. You don't really matter, but we don't really matter. But the Lord has already won this battle, and he won it by defeating Satan. And the question isn't whether Satan is stronger than you, because he is. There's no question that he is. The question is, who are you going to submit yourself to? You get to pick. And you get the power to pick from God, not Satan, so he can't take that away from you. So the question's not whether he can flash his power to you and freak you out and scare you. Who cares about that, right? It's not, like, why would that, it's like you turn on the lights and it gets brighter. Yeah, okay, so what's the surprise here, right? And that's a weird analogy, but you turn off the lights and it gets darker, no surprise, right? The question's, what are you going to do about it? Because if you already know where you're going and like you're real comfortable in the place you live, you don't really need the lights on, you know where to walk, right? So if you trust in God and you've lived your life that way, the question is not whether Satan's stronger than you or not. Who cares? It's completely irrelevant. Who cares? And I will note, I didn't look up scriptures for this, but Jesus said, don't fear those that can harm your body. Fear those who can harm your soul. Here's a secret, folks. He doesn't have power to do that. Only you do. So God didn't give him power to do that. You have to pick. I'm sorry I'm tapping this table because I'm talking with my hands and I'm leaning on it. He doesn't give Satan power to harm your soul. You have to give Satan power to harm your soul. So let him hurt your body. Let him hurt your feelings. Who cares? Right? Just tie yourself up to Jesus like you're on a ship in a big storm and you're tying yourself to the mast. And just go with it. That's not a good analogy either because the ship can be destroyed by a sea. But anyway. So in Luke 20, getting back to the cat and mouse. So these Pharisees are fooling with Jesus, so they think, and they're trying to trip him up. And they ask him this question, and then he gives them this rock solid answer. And it says, one of them then says, Master, thou hast well said. And like I can see this video in my head. I can see this movie of this guy just kind of like, shouldn't have done that, right? Like, we're toast. There's nothing we can say now. And we don't believe in him still, but he just stole all of our weapons. So there's nothing we can do. And it says, I'm in verse 40 in Luke 20. And after that, they durst not ask him any question at all. Look, if you do the right thing, this happens all the time. People realize that they're messing with a higher power. Not you, not me, but who we serve. And I'll say they back off. It doesn't mean they don't come again, but every time they come, they regret it. And that's the power that he has. And that's not what we want. We want them to get it, not to regret it, but to get it. And some do. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 41, and he said unto them, how say they that Christ, so Jesus turns the tables. So these guys are done asking him questions. They're like, yeah, well, this isn't a good idea. Anything we say, he will use against us. And we deserve it. And so Now it's Jesus' turn, and he says, how say they that Christ is David's son? And, and David himself saith in the book of Psalms, the Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou on my right hand, till I make thine enemies thy footstool. David therefore called him Lord. How is he then his son? And this is cryptic Old English, but in plain terms, he said, why do you all believe that Christ will be a descendant of David? Because David said in Psalms that the Lord said to my Lord, sit on my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. So how could David have called him Lord if the Lord is his son? There were reasons why he asked this, and I'm not going to go into them because it's not relevant to my point, and it will take more time to explain, and I'm not sure why that would be the best thing to do right now. But I will finish this story before I go back to verse 43, till I make thine enemies thy footstool. He says, or it says, then in the audience of all the people he said unto his disciples, beware of the scribes which desire to walk in long robes and love greetings in the markets, in the highest seats in the synagogues, in the chief rooms at feasts, which devour widows' houses, and for show make long prayers. The same shall receive greater damnation. And so, in front of a crowd, he throws down and challenges these guys who started the fight. They challenged him. And he turns the tables, asks them a question that they absolutely should have known the answer to. And they're silent because they don't know the answer. And if they did know the answer, they weren't confident enough in it to say it in front of Jesus because they thought he would tear them to shreds. And he would have. Plus, if they had the right answer, they only would have affirmed who he was and how he was, and that everyone should believe in him. And that's the funny thing about the truth. The truth will always support God's cause. Even if it's not obvious that that's what's happening, that's what's happening. So, then because they can't answer, in addition to some really harsh things, calling them names, he says, why would anyone believe these fools? They don't even know the simplest of things that they purport to know, that they would have to know if they are who they say they are. And this is good stuff, right? And this is how teachers of the gospel should be. And this is, I told one of my sons once, he was walking around, his mouth was writing checks that his accomplishments in life could not cash. I took him aside and I said, look, everything you're saying happens to be true that I've heard, but you need to understand that just because something is true, it doesn't mean you have a right to say it. You have to earn the right to say certain things, because otherwise you can't say them with the sincerity that needs to back them in order to make a persuasive argument. This is completely relevant to the topic. So those quote-unquote certain vagabond Jews who went around casting out devils in the quote-unquote name of Jesus, and they said, they might have done it in the name of Paul. I don't remember. I'm not going to pull it up, but the point's the same either way. And they said, Paul we know and Jesus we know, but who are you? And then they attacked them. So you need that backing. You have to pay a price in order to get the thing that you seek. And that's true of all things. And even though the gospel is free, it's free like government money is free. Someone is paying for it. And even if that someone is someone else, there is a cost in you receiving it. It's not automatic, and you have to seek after and receive. You have to perceive, receive, and do it, and share it with others. Okay, anyway, let's get back to verse 43. So the psalm that, I think it's Psalm 103, but I might be wrong, it's off the top of my head, that that Jesus is quoting here, he says, till I make thine enemies thy footstool. So why would the Father tell the Son, sit on my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool? What does that even mean? Well, enemies is pretty clear, right? Footstool, that one you have to look up the word. It doesn't mean something you put your feet up on. I mean, that is one of the meanings, but that's not what was intended here. Here, it means, let's see, how can I explain this? A better rendering would be something like, until the people who oppose you recognize your goodness to such an extent that they submit to you with their whole heart and their full capability. That's a good rendering. So neither the Father nor the Son came to damn anyone. The Father, he didn't send the Son to damn anyone. He sent the Son to save people. Jesus said in John 10, I believe, I come to give life and more abundantly. In other places, he says things like, my work and my glory is to bring to pass eternal life. And, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Anyway, it's resurrection, and not just to live again, but to live better than you did before. That's the purpose of everything that he does. And so his purpose is not to squish his enemies. He's not Conan the Barbarian, right? His purpose is to help everyone, including his enemies, to recognize and receive more value than they otherwise would. So, why hasn't that happened yet? Moving right along. This is Jesus in Doctrine and Covenants 63:59. He says, behold, I am from above, and my power lieth beneath. That's a very important sentence. I'm not going to go into it. I am over all, and in all, and through all, and search all things. And the day cometh that all things shall be subject unto me. Maybe I will go into that sentence. We'll see. So, again, another witness that the day has not yet come when all things are subject unto him. And I just explained why. Okay, but in the meantime, the question is, what do you do about it, right? So, in this same passage, he says, behold, I am Alpha and Omega, even Jesus Christ. Wherefore let all men beware how they take my name in their lips. For behold, verily I say that many there be who are under this condemnation, who use the name of the Lord and use it in vain, having not authority. So remember those guys going around trying to cast out devils in the name of Jesus. So how can you tell if you're on the right track or not? Like if the devils turn and rend you, you're probably not on the right track. Something's wrong, right? Because that shouldn't happen. So topic of the video is overcoming temptation. If you're still struggling, something's wrong, folks. So how do you overcome all things in and through Christ, who has already overcome things? You become subject to him voluntarily before you have to become subject to him, because you don't have a choice, because it's the last day and you're being shown how much of an idiot you are, basically. How many times he reached out and you swatted his hand away. So the way to overcome it is to voluntarily submit to him. And how do you do that? This could be a long conversation, but let's keep it brief by referring to what I just read. You use the name of the Lord and you don't do it in vain. In the briefest terms, this is a long topic. In the briefest terms, the name of the Lord is the character of God. If you seek, find, adopt, and live the name of the Lord, which is not, that's a process, it's an incremental process. As you do that, you will encounter all he is and all he has. And that includes power over the devil and anyone that follows the devil. So what is that power really? I'm not going to explain it, but I'll point you in the right direction. Behold, I am from above, and my power lieth beneath. So I'll tell you what the power is not. Jesus died on the cross. He had power over his own life, but he did not escape his own death voluntarily. But my point is, when he said, don't fear those who can harm you physically, fear those who can harm you spiritually. In other words, yourself. Fear yourself. Don't fear Satan or anyone else. Fear you, because you're the one who can mess this up. They can't. So encountering his power doesn't mean that you're going to be spared hard things. It means that you will have the ability to overcome them. And what that means is the name of Christ is the character of Christ. You can live in such a way and obtain tools such that nothing that can happen on this planet, nothing can shake you from the character of God that you possess. And included in that is absolute, complete confidence and peace. Peace I give you, not as the world gives, I give to you. That's what he said. And this is that peace. It's only found in and through God to the extent that you have discovered, received, and become like he is. I am laying out bombshell truths here. These are massively more valuable than their vehicle. And I really hope that you watch this video many times and pull these out and study them. They will be laid out for you in greater detail over time. But the way faith works is the more evidence you have for something and the more plainly it's laid out, the less the possible blessings you can obtain through living it. That's just the way it works. And again, I'm throwing that one out there too. That one's a real gem. But if you have ears to hear and you have the faith to jump on these things early, you'll be all the more better off later. Okay. Let's just reaffirm this. I'm looking at the three other scriptures I pulled up. Well, let's do this one first. D&C 88:41. He, being God, comprehendeth all things, and all things are before him, and all things are round about him. And he is above all things, and in all things, and is through all things, and is round about all things, and all things are by him, and of him, even God, forever and ever. This is the way it is. This is the way it's always been. This is the way it has to be. And if you want to be like that in any way, you have to be like that in some way, right? It is an enormous fallacy. So keeping on topic, you can pray to God and you can ask him to take away the thing that you're going through. You can do that. And he is mighty to save. He's also mighty to fortify. And in my opinion, that is an infinitely better thing. So if you want him to transmit his glory to you, that's not going to work. I don't even know if I'm on screen. That's not going to work because in Isaiah he says he doesn't give his glory to other people. So sorry to pop that bubble. But he provides the way for you to become like he is, and that's how you obtain his glory, to the extent that you will. So he can exert influence on other things to change the situation you're in. That's not the same as giving you his glory, though. And honestly, I don't know if, are you asking for a good thing if you ask for that? Because he sent it to you for a reason. It wasn't just to take you out of it. If you go and read the man born blind in John 9, Jesus says that people say, why was this man born blind? Is he the sinner or his parents? And Jesus says, neither. It's for the glory of God that he was born blind. And then Jesus heals him, but he doesn't take the blindness away so much as he gives the man a path through which he can retain all the goodness that he got from the blindness after it served its purpose. And having been born blind, he sees better than anyone around him because he knows who Jesus is, where they couldn't exercise the very, very basic reasoning required and honesty, simplest honesty, to recognize him. This is getting too long, I'm sorry. So, transmit glory, that's not how to do it. It goes like this. Not, well, God doesn't move. You go to him. If you want more of what he is, eclipse him. Live exactly how you see him living in your life. Through all the things you've learned about him and all of the experiences you've had with him, that model that you've built of what would the ideal man be or woman, be that person all the time, no exceptions. And that sounds like a really high bar to people, but the thing is, as daunting as it seems and overwhelming as it seems, it's not being like God. Because our understanding of how he is so limited. It's incomplete, and in a lot of ways it's incorrect. But that is the way. That is the way. And as you do that, what happens is, so you move to align with him from where you are, how it seems, he will reveal more of himself to you. He's not going to do that very, very extensively until you move. And in as much as you move towards him, he'll give you more. And that's how it goes forever. I was going to bust out some scriptures about Adam and dominion. I'm not going to do that, so sorry. We'll leave it at that. I think that's a good point. So next time you're in a tough spot, just remember, the battle is not yours to win. It's already won. And Satan will try to get you to feel that way and to think that way. But that is because it's to his advantage, because he can squish you if you're thinking like that. You need to understand that your strength lies in aligning with Jesus. He's the one that has overcome all things. There will come a day where he subjects all things to himself. That's a huge key to understand the end times events, actually. But I won't go into that either. But if you turn to him, and you seek him with all of your heart, might, mind, and strength, and you implement fully in your life absolutely everything you sincerely believe about him, and you open your eyes to what you have not paid attention to around you that testifies of him in things and in people, and you gobble up every single resource you can find that in some way teaches you more about him. I'm not saying prioritizing books and people over the spirit. I'm saying feed the furnace of your spirit with the things he's put right under your nose, but always keep the connection with him directly supreme. If you do that, he absolutely will lead you along to greener pastures. So I hope that's helpful. This was part 5. Maybe there will be a part 6, but I think I'm done, so we'll see.